Well, good evening. Welcome to Find It, where we are here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. to decide how we're going to find something. And tonight, our very special guest is Barry Selby, author of 50 Ways to Love Your Lover. Okay, so he is a relationship specialist and just an overall great guy. So I can't wait for you guys to meet him. So Lynn, my producer, is going to throw up. She's not going to throw up. That sounded funny. Anyway, she's going to show the intro for Barry, and he will be right back with us. Welcome to the show, Barry.
Thank you. That's so impressive. I'm like, damn.
Damn. I've got a whole little thing going before I'm on here. Yeah. Well, welcome. It's so good to have you on Find It. Finally, I have been so excited to have you. And, for all the listeners, Barry and I met through, I believe it was Lynn Serrano, who is my producer. And we also join in on she and Scott Jones's podcast on Tuesday evenings together. So I feel like I really know you pretty well because we've had those amazing topic conversations over the last several months. Right. So welcome to Find It.
My pleasure to be here. And this is going to be fun because, frankly, in those group chat type thing we have, it's almost like, can you get a word in edgeways? So this is nice to have just the two of us chatting. So
yeah, now it's just us and our listeners. Hopefully write in some questions for you because, this is the time. You have this specialist, this expert in relationships with you tonight, also with me. And I have questions as well. And I have questions that some people I know wanted to ask, but didn't really want to ask online. But we have one coming in right now. Julie Preston, hello and happy Wednesday with Find It. Oh, I love this, his accent. Happy birthday to your sissy Vicky and hope she comes on and sees this. Thanks, Julie. Yeah, happy birthday to my sister, my oldest sister, Victoria. Her birthday is today. Very special lady. But so now is the time to ask these questions of you. But first, let's tell everyone where you're actually originally from and where you live now.
So the accent, for those people who are trying to guess where it's from, it's not Australia.
New Jersey.
No, I'm born and raised in East London, in England, in Essex, basically. And I moved to the States in 1981, and that's where I live now in California, and she's in Los Angeles, in California.
Yeah, so I'm going to show this picture because you actually take hikes a lot. And when I saw this on your Facebook page, I was like, wait a minute now, you're hiking. So, and you have really beautiful photos that you take.
Thanks. Well, just sidebar for a second. The work I do now, I've been doing for the last 15 years, but I've had several careers before that. And one of those is being a professional photographer, but also having a phone, which is your camera on you. When I'm out hiking, there are so much things to see and I love watching what's going on. It's almost like I can't not do it. So pictures of like, there's a couple of hawks that fly around. There's geese. There's rabbits and squirrels, all sorts of stuff. So
remember our gangster squirrel?
Yeah, the gangster squirrel. Yeah.
You get up and the squirrel was kind of like this, and I was like,
the thing is, the squirrels have become so bold because people feed nuts all the time. So they think every human's got nuts. They look at me like, where's the nuts?
Yeah, it's like, give it to me. But it's so crazy because when I look through those pictures, I love nature. I love to see your photos, and I always kind of giggle because I'm like, he's out in California, but here's beautiful places to hike. The nature photos that you take, but that one picture of that squirrel, I was like, oh my God, I wouldn't have been zooming in to take its picture. I would have been hightailing it out of there. It was like, and yeah. It was
that's the thing. I did zoom in, so I wasn't that close to him, so I was okay,
Yeah, okay, I gotcha. You're anyway, a sure distance. I got you.
And just to be clear, that's my morning commitment to go hiking every morning. And LA, definitely with all the drought and everything and the heat, it isn't as nature as I'd like to. It's not like Pacific Northwest sort of thing. It's still very dry, but at least in the hills, there's some greenery to see. So it's good. Anyway, back to the topic.
So from England to California, which is where you are now. And amazing author. This book is really cool because I love at the
Thank
end,
you.
and you have places for notes specifically to, it's a wealth of information about how relationships work, how to nurture them, and all the rest. So,
Yeah.
Ken Wells just popped in. Hey, Ken. So I
Okay.
would love for you to explain to people what you actually do, and then let's start, and you can start giving us examples of what you've learned and what you've found in relationships.
Well, let's just start with the fact that I've been single for a long time. I've not been happily married for 30 years. So my background is not from having a relationship to teach from. It's
Okay.
from all the mistakes I've made,
Oh, well, hey.
primarily. Hey, but also I've been a student of personal development, human growth. I've got a background in spiritual psychology, a master's degree, and spiritual counselor for 20 plus years. So I've learned a lot from other people and from studying and learning how to be a better person for any relationship. That's going to be my journey. And the secret is that every relationship is the one that starts with ourselves anyway. That's been my journey. So what I'm teaching from is what I know about myself and what I've gone through, which makes it easier to be whole, independent of somebody else. Because frankly, any relationship that you go looking for somebody else to fix you, like, you complete me, is a trap. So the whole thing about, that Jerry Maguire quote is such a undercutting of healthy relationships. It sounds so
Well, the
romantic.
Jerry Maguire term, the quote, "You
You
complete
complete me.
me,"
Mm-hmm.
is really leading people down the wrong path.
Well, it is. It sounds so romantic, which unfortunately many phrases have been made to look romantic. But frankly, what they're doing is giving you the sense that you're incomplete with somebody else, which is a lie. And
Gotcha.
most relationships, and in my book, that talks about relationships not 50-50, the 100-100. But we think somehow that we're incomplete without somebody else to fill us up, to make us feel whole, which means that we get into this very enmeshed, what's known as codependent relationship with somebody else. I did that many times, so I know the pain of that when it doesn't work.
That's funny because when you said it shouldn't be 50-50, it's a 100-100. I learned that from you. And I was having coffee after boxing Saturday with a group of people, and they were
Mm-hmm.
talking about relationships. It's 60-40, it's whatever. I go, how about 100-100? And everyone's like, that sounds crazy talk. But I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, Barry put that there. But
Well, the thing is, was to
yeah,
say, yes, in relationship there's give and take, but a relationship is not 100%. A relationship is 200% because it's two people together. It's like you and me in the relationship type thing. And when we take full responsibility for our full participation at 100%, and so does the other person, our relationship just elevates. So absolutely, it's 100% each person.
And the other thing that you said that truly means a lot to me is the fact that, hi, Kelly, love Kelly, is that in order, and the reason the "you complete me" isn't really what we want is that
Mm-hmm.
you're, like you said, you feel like you need someone else to make you whole, when the reality is we got to work on ourselves, love ourselves first, so we can really love others fully. And I even touched on that in my book, but my book is just like an easy read. Yours is actually, even though I said it's like the Bible because it's so thick, but it's much easier to read than the Bible. Let's just say that it is
Thank you.
so much. I love it. It's a lot of material, but it's very easy to read and to understand, and it's enlightening.
Thank you.
So I love it. So with that being said, some of the things that you touched on in each chapter, I'm not going to go through chapter, but I've had some people ask me questions to ask you because they didn't feel comfortable typing it in.
Totally
So
fine.
I've had some people say, the falling in love part is so exciting. And, you fall in love with this person and you're like, oh, you're the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. And then you tie the knot. And then all of a sudden the honeymoon's over and real life hits. And then you start questioning, wait, where did the passion go? Where's the romance? So what kind of advice do you give to couples who, the passion may be gone and they're trying to connect in the way that they had in the beginning, and that's kind of like fizzled out?
Well, the first of all things, you can't go back. First of all, so let me be clear about that. And also, just because I work with singles more than couples, so my couples work is it's not as easy to play with couples because there's a lot more complexity there. With a single person, it's much easier. But in this context, you're asking about the challenge for couples. Oftentimes, because they get into routine. When couples are together, especially if they've had the highs of the initial part, it tends to settle down to a certain level. And by the way, I hate the term falling in love, because why would you want to fall down? Why not rise in love?
Yeah.
Personal opinion.
What are we going to call it then? What's your new term? We're not falling in love. We're
how about
jumping
we
into
rise,
love.
how about you rise in love, or grow in love, or
Okay.
lift in love? I don't know. There's other ways of putting it. But the thing is,
I like it.
and again, most of these terms, fall in love, settle down. It's like, where's the joy in this? So when couples get together, it is certainly exciting, that experience of becoming loving another person, for want of a better way of saying it, and then the euphoria of the honeymoon and everything else, and then things start to become real again. And the challenge is, for most people, they didn't spend time in the relationship with the reality of life. They've had it separated somehow. There's the wonderful euphoria of the loving relationship, and there's life outside of that. But once you get married and settle down, real life tends to intercede in the relationship, and that can make things really challenging. So it really comes down to, what's the foundation of the relationship? How connected are you two together? How supportive of you of each other? Now, on a totally romantic chemistry level, the good news is that chemistry is renewable. It doesn't go away forever unless you didn't have anything to start with. The challenge with chemistry, in the sense of romantic connection, intimacy, sex, and that sort of thing, is that we tend to forget our original polarity, the roles we play. And polarity for me is the conversation about masculine, feminine, that polarity. It's like a spectrum. So we each reside on, and this is going to take a little caveat for a second, we reside on the spectrum somewhere between masculine and feminine energy. We have a natural resonance some point along that line. We live. That's our organic, natural state. But we've put on different masks and shells to present in a certain way for the world requirements. A lot of women, they put on a lot of masculine energy to do business and to live in the world of the dynamic, getting things done, make things happen, which is a very masculine way of doing things. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, when in relationship, if you still do that, you tend to be banging heads with your partner if they stay in the masculine as well. So to recreate the chemistry, it's about both partners going to the ends of the spectrum, so to speak. When the man who's naturally masculine moves more into that masculine energy, the woman who's more naturally feminine moves more intentionally into the feminine energy, you create more distance. And like magnets, you create more attraction. That's how.
Oh, yeah.
Viewed.
Okay.
Because when you're two, especially if you've been together a long time, it's like when you put magnets in a drawer together, they tend to lose the magnetism because they just become detuned, so to speak. And couples together can do the same thing because they become friends. And so the tension, the sexuality, the attraction dissipates. So you've got to basically take conscious intention, conscious action to recharge the battery, so to speak. But it can be done.
How do you do that?
Well, this was said, it's basically you do things to renew your energy. So for men to be in the masculine, oftentimes they may have done things where they've become detuned for some reason. So do things that put them back in the masculine, like doing sports, or even just sitting meditating, or going for hikes and doing things on his own can be really good to rebuild his battery. Because oftentimes in relationships, when the man has become the ear for the woman to complain to be basically the girlfriend, he's no longer feeling his masculine drive anymore at home. So do things to rebuild that energy is a good thing. For women, because oftentimes, again, they do masculine things in the world, to retune to their feminine is to go hang out with their girlfriends, or to do yoga or dance, do other things that move their energy up in their bodies. So little things that men and women can do that recharge, again, their batteries of polarity, which creates more attraction.
That makes sense. I've heard of, with the, let's just, since I'm a woman, I'm going to use this. So
I noticed that. Yes.
Thank you. But I have a tendency to get into the masculine energy and hang out there. Yeah. And not overly, I don't think, maybe. I mean, you can ask people, I don't know. But I mean, there are women who hang out constantly in the masculine energy and are take control. And what I've heard, from different conversations, is that sometimes the husband or the boyfriend or whatever, when the wife is so in her masculine energy, that almost demasculates them.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, I mean, and that can be a real serious problem between a couple, right?
Well, yes. Now, let me qualify a couple of things, because I'm speaking in generalities here. There are men who are more naturally feminine than masculine, and this is independent of sexual preference.
Yes.
Because there are men who are straight who are more feminine, and women who are more masculine who are also straight. In gay relationships, the same thing happens as well. And just to be transparent for myself, I had spent several relationships being more in my feminine without knowing what it was. But I attracted women who were very leadership and very in charge. It was very exciting for me.
Yeah.
But I became I advocated my role as being the masculine leader and became a passive passenger, which is why they broke up with me as well.
Right.
So
Right.
so it
Because, but
didn't work.
then if they're in their masculine energy, like gung ho, then where does that leave a man
Well, that's
to
the
be?
challenge, because for a lot of women, they're hoping the man's going to basically be more masculine than they are so they can relax. Part of it is because they need to trust a man can take care of them energetically, not financially, but how
Yeah.
he can take care of them so they can feel safe, so they can let it go. Because a lot of women have built defenses by being strong to take care of themselves. They had to.
Yeah.
And so when they meet a man who might be the one, they don't want to just take down their walls immediately, because they got to build trust with him. They got to know he can really be that masculine presence they can feel safe with. But if he doesn't occupy that role, then they're not going to feel safe. And oftentimes when they're masculine, because again, opposite polarity, masculine and feminine attracts, masculine women would tend to attract feminine men almost organically because of the connection that way. And
I
so the
get
challenge
it.
is, and I know, because being a nice guy that I was and still am, but when I was back then, if a woman was being strong, I wouldn't try to compete with her, because that wouldn't feel comfortable. I would just be like, whatever you want, honey, be very nice to her, which initially works, but after the long term, it doesn't.
Yes. So how do you, okay, so here's the thing, like if it works in the beginning, right? And then you think, well, this is working. And then you become a couple, or then you even move into marriage, and then it
Mm-hmm.
stops working. I mean,
Right.
how do you know? I mean, I know communication is key, but how do you even know what type of things woman, a masculine woman, let's say, a masculine energy woman, is going to consider being taking care of me? Is that like, I don't want to worry when I get in the car, you're doing directions and driving me to our destination? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I guess, how do you help people understand how to communicate with their partner so their partner knows what their idea of taking care of me is to begin with?
Well, first of all, it does require communication, as you said, but also it's recognizing where, if you're feeling the other person is not filling up the part of the role that you want, so you're taking it up for them, that's an initial sense. So a lot of it's self-reflection, just to be honest. You got to look at yourself in the mirror and notice where you may be choosing things that aren't what you really want, but you're doing because of the relationship. That's a clear indication right there. The other part is also notice what it is you prefer being. Where are you most happy? Are you happier running the show, being directional, getting things done? Or are you more happy being relaxed and flowing and being taken care of? Find where your natural resonance is. And if you're not in there, then maybe your partner needs to take over some of that responsibility so you can occupy that space more easily. And again, this
Which
is very
goes
general.
back,
I know. Yes.
yes, which goes back to the very first thing you said, which is you got to know who you are, know
Yes.
yourself, what makes you happy, what brings you joy, what is
Mhm.
your ideal relationship. And
Yeah.
and you can't jump into relationships with other people expecting them to know who you are when you don't even know who you are, right?
Right. Right.
This is the you beautiful. I don't know, you guys, is it because of his accent, or does he really know this stuff? I'm loving it. I think it's both. So the other thing was, in a relationship, it always ebbs and flows. And there's a level of respect that also kind of ebbs and flows, but the respect part can change. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know exactly what that question is. I think they're just alluding to, you have this mutual respect, but as you change as a human being, so does the level of respect. Do you know anything about that? Can you enlighten us with any
Well, I'm not,
comments about?
I'm not
I
sure the
don't really
context
know
of the
what the
question.
question is. I think it's
Right.
just, I mean, you do have to have a mutual respect for one another, right? In a relationship, respect what each other
And it will
wants.
change. Right. It will change and it will evolve and it will grow. The thing about respect is it's something that you don't go looking for. It's something you either earn or you notice. And the thing is, in relationship, again, as I said earlier about women looking for safety when they will be in the feminine, what men often looking for is sense of respect. So in a sense, the men and women, or masculine and feminine, are wired differently. What they're seeking to be fulfilled is different. Feminine seeks safety in a sense. Masculine looks for respect. And so when each partner does that to each other, that creates a up leveling of the quality of how each other views each other. How each person views each other is better. And that's the dance. And it is a dance because it's not something that is consistent. Like you don't get this relationship and go, here's the bar and we're here forever. But no, it's going to keep going up a bit, down a bit, and all that in the journey. And it's that recognition that we're having, bounce the screen around. It's that point that we're having an awareness that we're changing, we're growing, we're evolving. The relationship is meant to be a journey together, my belief is. It's not a place you get to and you arrive and you're done. A relationship is a journey together. It's a part of exploring and growing and expanding who you are as a person, as the other person is too. That's my vision of an ideal relationship.
I believe you. And I also think that now that you're expanding on what I just read off, I think maybe what that question really was is what you just answered is how do you're together and then you change and you grow and the level of respect changes because maybe one person isn't okay with the change or you want things to stay the same. And, maybe that's, and we have to understand that things do change and you got to be able to go with the flow.
Well, again, a chapter in my book talks about the rubber band experience of relationships. When you get into a relationship, there's a certain level of energy between the two partners. It can be like a tension in a way, like a rubber band, or like pulling on each other gently. Now, the thing is, in talking about when things change and evolve, is when one partner does grow, evolve, change. Maybe they read a book, or they started doing yoga, or they went through a personal development seminar, or they had an epiphany of something, or went to a retreat and they learned something new. And so their perception of life has changed. They may have grown a little bit. What happens is the other person who hasn't changed, there's going to be one of three things that happens. And that person who's grown will look back at the person who they grew from because they've become more of themselves, they've learned more about themselves, and they may encourage that person to grow as well. And that person may say, I want some of that, and they'll grow as well. And again, it raises the bar of the relationship. They become more equal again. Or that person may say, you know what, I'm happy as I am. And the person who grew said, you know what, the relationship is more important than the growth that experience I had. It's like, that's not as important as this relationship. I'll go back to where I was. That's rare, but it happens. The third option is the person who's grown keeps growing, and the person who stayed stays the same. The relationship ends.
The rubber band snaps.
Exactly. That's the way I talk about rubber band, because relationships, again, I believe, are a growth journey. When both partners are growing, that's great. If one person grows, the other person doesn't, there's not really a relationship left unless they both grow together. Now they can grow apart and together. There's kind of this two different paths that we follow in a relationship. So we don't necessarily grow at the same pace at the same time. We may grow apart and then together again, but the commitment to the relationship keeps that going.
Wow. You can grow. That is, I've never heard it said like that. You can grow apart, but you can come back together as long as the commitment to the relationship is there.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I did get to, you're on sooner than I thought you were going to be. So I didn't read the full book, but I read like a bunch.
I appreciate the honesty.
I know. But I did. I read a ton of it. I read some of it when I first got the book, and I read a ton of it last night. But yeah, I did get to the rubber band analogy and what you just said. But it's really good. I know that let's talk about this, because I've had several people talk about being married before and then divorcing and then being in the dating world all of a sudden, and you haven't been for like 20 years. And what are your thoughts on the dating world now? And what advice would you give women and men both for getting back out there?
First of all, take a breath.
Yeah, take some time to find yourself. Find it.
For example, 20 years ago, there were no smartphones. 2007 was the iPhone came out. Yep. So it's not that long. So there were no dating apps. So all that swiping and clicking and all that sort of thing wasn't even on the radar for most people 20 years ago. So first of all, know there's a whole new world, and it is very convenient. Yeah, exactly, Kellyanne. It's hell. It is a bit challenging. But the thing I'll say about dating is it's a great place to hone your choices. The dating apps, there are plenty out there, and some are better than others. And there's definitely some scams out there too. So you got to watch what you're wading, so to speak. Thank you, Flo. Go with the flow. The thing is that in the dating apps, what is great is first of all, you can refine who you are and what you're looking for. And secondly, by who you see as the matches on these apps, you can see more clearly what is it you're looking for is matching or not.
Mm-hmm.
So the dating apps, I mean, I work with a lot of matchmakers too, and matchmakers have a whole different arena they play with. There are also social engagements. There used to be speed dating events when before the pandemic, there hopefully will be again. So the dating apps aren't the only way to do things. And as I mentioned before the show, I met somebody through a different arena, which we're not in a relationship, but we're just exploring. But the thing is, I don't think I would have met her on the dating apps. So we happened to meet through a social Facebook group. Okay. And I said this once in a video I did. I talked about how Facebook is a better dating app than Match.com because you get to meet friends of friends on on the Facebook apps, and they're more visible what their information is. Where dating apps tend to channel the information in the profile to be very specific. So you don't really know who that person is beyond what they're looking for and maybe their height and their weight and their preferences. But on Facebook, you know all about them much more easily, who they hang out with, where they've been traveling to, all those sort of things. So maybe you can meet somebody through Facebook. Even not saying it's the only place to look, but don't put all your eggs in one basket. I would say that. And again, with dating, if you're especially after a 20-year marriage or something like that, take a breath, be lighthearted with it. Because it can definitely not be you meet the right person off the bat. You might, but you might go through a few opportunities. But along the way, and I'll say this also, if you've come over 20-year marriage and you haven't faced yourself in the mirror and done the inner work to heal, especially if you're the one that was broken up with, heartbreak is a wound that needs to be healed. Can't be ignored, glossed over. Time doesn't heal the wound, it just numbs it. So if you've gone through a breakup or a divorce after a 20-year marriage, get some help. Go see a coach or a therapist or somebody like myself, not the only one out there, but someone like myself, and to do the inner work to heal those wounds. Because the other part about it on the dating apps is you do not want to be meeting somebody from a place where you're not whole. You know?
Bob Denell asks, how do you coach people to establish criteria dating?
Criteria, if you mean like having clear indication of what you want, part of that's a self-guided process. You just learn by mistakes and you get better and better. Or you work with somebody who's an expert or a dating coach who can actually help you write your profile and also get clear about what you really want. It doesn't hurt before you can get on the dating apps to make a list. Just make a list of what works for you, what doesn't work for you. You know, I talk about red flags and green flags in my book. It's important to know what it is that absolutely will not work for you. What are your deal breakers? What will not work for you? Particularly if your past relationship showed you things you didn't want to have again, they should be on your red flag list. And then make sure you have a green flag list. What are the essential things you must have in a relationship? Maybe, surprise, surprise, maybe monogamy is your one thing you must have in a relationship. Maybe they're a healthy eater. Make a list of those things that are priorities. Those are your green list. You know, and the red flags could be things like you want someone who doesn't abandon you, who's not a workaholic, who takes care of themselves. You know, it's like those sort of things are important things to have up front before you can get on the dating apps. Know what it is you really want in a relationship partner.
I really like that, Barry. And I also like the fact that you said, you know, a lot of people kind of say, this is what I want, but then they don't ever really say, here's the no.
Yeah.
That's really good. The red and green flag. I like that. And also, Lynn, can you pop up Kara's comment or question? Kara says, what would you say to help a marriage grow for a couple that is 35 plus years married and kids are grown and out of the house?
Well, first of all, congratulations on 35 years and kids. That's quite a milestone right there. So good luck to you on that. The second thing is it's a good time, especially now you're empty nesters, so to speak, is to start over again in a way. Like start over the energy of the couple. Start dating each other. This is an interesting place to play. Because again, after that many years and being that with kids and moving on out of the house, you may have gotten into a routine, into a way of being that's become comfortable. And if you really want to start or deepen the marriage and the connection you two have, take yourself out on dates. First of all, that's one thing you can do that's really good because it takes the energy back to like rekindling the spark in a way. And do things that free you up, like go on trips together that you may not have been able to go on because the kids were at home. There are things you can do that really spices up the energy. Not necessarily, not saying kinky stuff.
Well, why not?
Well, hey, if you want to, great. I'm not saying you have to, but say, we can do things that are much more simple, which are really, take yourself out on dates. Get the point where basically, like for example, he goes out a couple hours earlier and maybe he does something to surprise you. He goes and gets some flowers, and maybe he picks you up from your house. takes you on a date, like, and make it really proper. Goes out on a date to a restaurant, maybe go out dancing, do something that really is not just the routine of a married couple, but it's like a romantic dating experience. You know, absolutely.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you for piping in. And you know, the truth of the matter is it takes energy and effort.
Yes.
What you just said is actually saying this is what we need to do and then putting action behind it to
Yeah.
make it happen. Yeah.
It takes both
Wow, I
partners
love
wanting to do
that.
it. Yes.
I
Yeah.
love that. Some other questions were, okay, so these are some younger people who are talking about, but it could go for any age. But how do you know if someone's really into you? Like, remember that what I thought about when that was asked was, remember that movie called He's Just Not That Into You? Did you ever
I
see
think
that
so. Yeah.
movie? He's just not that into you. And it was this guy telling this girl, you know, this is what, if a guy doesn't call you back, if he's, you know, not making the plans, if he's,
Yeah.
so what advice do you give to women and men? Because it's not just, he's not that into you.
Oh yeah.
What advice do you give to know whether, I mean, what do you,
You're like
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound, but it's true. You have all these hard questions all the time in your
hmm
job. I
So,
mean,
here's
people
the
like,
thing.
how do you tell someone, no, these are red flags. This guy or this girl doesn't like you. He's not that into you. She's not that into you. How do you
Right.
know? What are some red flags of he's not that into you?
So here's a couple of things. First of all, there's a lot of terminology in the dating field, like ghosting, that came out of post smartphone, past dating app experiences. So first, the thing about ghosting, what it means is the person disappears, and that's a clear sign they're not into you. But sometimes people hold a vain hope for that person to show up again, even though they haven't responded back to them for 2 weeks, 3 weeks without hearing a word. So communication is part of the key of knowing if they're into you, because if they continue the communication, that's a good sign they're into you. I mean, obvious, I know. But also and this is the challenge, because most people aren't honest. So especially when there's something interested in, if they fall out of interest, they'll sort of back away and they'll just sort of try to go invisible, which is a real joke. Rather than saying, I'm really not, I really enjoyed our company this time, but I'm not feeling it right now. If we had more honesty in that arena, boy, it's so much easier. So to know someone's into you, it's really a question you sometimes, especially if you've been dating for a while, is ask them. What is it?
Like
What is
you
he
said,
want?
people don't, it's uncomfortable for someone to say that but for me, like they talk about ghosting,
Mm-hmm.
which is like not even responding when you send them a message or whatever. I think that's just really rude, especially if if you're being kind to someone and you're into them, but they're just, instead of just having the balls or the boobs to say, I'm sorry, I respect you, but I'm not feeling this or whatever. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's the respectful thing to do. So I think that's
Absolutely.
a red flag right there, right? Like if they're just
Yeah.
not returning your calls or not texting you back, that's very disrespectful. And
Well, the
so,
challenge is, I was going to say, one of the things that also, and this is part of my work as well, is about building trust with each other. And part of that trust is built by having agreement keeping, meaning that if you say things to somebody, you do what you're going to say, that creates trust. And what you do by not talking, by basically not letting them know you're into them, sort of thing, it's almost like you're breaking trust, because there's an unspoken agreement happening. Because even though you haven't said I'm into you, the assumption shows up that it is. And so there's this unfortunate place where people start feeling their trust is being broken. So it's important, I think, for the people who are wanting to know what the other person feels to find out, because then if there's going to be trust there or not. That person may be a flake, in which case you're going to end up suffering more if you don't find out. Then if you ask the question, like, I want to know, and obviously not the first date, but if you've been going together for a while, you're going to know that this is where you feel like you want to be. Is the other person there or not? So it's important to find out, because a relationship is about communication. partly. And if you don't communicate, if you make assumptions, that's very shaky ice.
Yeah, and I think what I've seen too, and is that women who are very emotional, and men can be too. I'm not saying, we
Hmm.
just had the discussion that we all have masculine and feminine energy within all of
Yes.
us. So I
Yeah.
don't want to, take men out of this equation by any means, but I know that women have a tendency to want to nurture and love and give back and all of that. And when they aren't getting, they're putting their love in there, and they're thinking, well, they've got to like me back, like we have good chemistry, we're,
Hmm.
but then if the other person isn't saying it isn't working for me, I mean, then that leaves the girl or the guy in limbo of wondering, when the reality of it is you should probably know, but when you're that emotionally invested, you make excuses of
Yep.
why they're doing it. This is the only reason, like, he really or she really likes me. It's just because of X, Y, and Z, because that's the emotions taking over. It's not logical, right?
And on top of that, as I said earlier about this thing about coming out of a relationship and being still wounded or still incomplete, is if we start dating from that place, we tend to get more and more wounded because we're trusting where we shouldn't be trusting.
Mm.
So having that ability again to communicate clearly, set up firm boundaries is a big part of this as well. To have communication that's clear, it's sometimes something we forget when we're just coming out of a relationship that really sucked. So we're looking for any sort of love that makes us feel better.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
it's challenging because we're looking for love, and what we're getting is half of that, or a portion of that versus the whole deal. Because we're not looking from a whole place; we're looking from a wounded place.
Wow. Think of that. Let's just say that again. So when you're wounded
Yeah,
and you're going out and you're dating, any love feels good any
of
love
course.
feels good because
Right,
it's patching up some of those wounds.
right.
But as time goes, if you're not a whole person and you're not getting the full love that you need, eventually one of these days you're going to realize, after a long time of investment emotionally, that they're not capable of giving you the love that you need and that you're worthy of, right? So you're
Absolutely.
so right. So when you go out and you're trying to find a partner, trying to find love, and I always hate to say trying to find, because it's like, let's go. I mean, we are on Find It though. So my
Right.
show was called Find It. So I guess it's okay. But
Hmm.
you go out and you want that special love, but you're right. You have to be whole first. So you
Yeah.
also get what eventually you're going to need, not just a little love that patches up one little part of your broken heart, but the
Right.
whole package. And we're worth it, each of us, every one of us.
Absolutely.
What do you
Yeah.
say to people when they say, I want to meet my soulmate?
Oh,
Do
don't get me started.
you believe in soulmates?
um, yes and no, and I'll say it this way: the way I wrote this meme out a few years ago. I mean, I believe in a loving God. Now you have your own relationship with God, whatever that is. But I believe in a loving God. I don't believe God would be that cruel to give you one soulmate amongst 8 billion people. That is totally unfair.
Yeah.
I've experienced crossing paths with people I believe were past soulmates 3 times in my life. They weren't available to date. They weren't. One was a guy, but I felt the energy of like that. That was like that was a soulmate. On the other side of the conversation about soulmates, one of the ways that soulmates are defined is the one that's going to force you to bring out your best. Not easy, not comfortable, not fun. But a soulmate, someone is going to basically, um, in a way, become
Challenge
the
you?
ones going to create friction for you to
Hmm.
grow.
Hmm.
So craving a soulmate isn't necessarily as romantic or as easy as you think it is. And I mean, the way that one of my friends, Lisa Nichols, talks about how oftentimes relationships are like gifts wrapped in sandpaper. And that visual just tickles me because the idea about the
Yeah,
relationship is
I'm
friction.
visualizing it.
Yeah.
You get
So
some rose
that
petals and fingertips.
exactly. So I'm not a big fan of the term soulmate or twin flames. They sound so poetic and spiritual. Just find someone that you really enjoy being with, that helps you grow, that you love being with, and help them grow. A relationship that grows and thrives, in theory, because again, back to the idea of, for me, my belief about spirit, is that God's something within every one of us, meaning that there's a soul within each one of us. So that means every one of us is a soulmate. Could be.
Right.
And again, because I don't know his actual facts and what is and what isn't, why not take the assumption that everyone's a possible soulmate? So any relationship you get into could be that if you want to develop it. So much easier.
I love that. And I love the fact that you've said too, let's not get caught up in genders either, like with soulmates. If you use the word soulmate, soulmates can be your best friend. You know, it doesn't have to be romantic, right? Is what you're saying.
Right.
It's how you feel an energy from a person that breathes life into you and it feels good. But like you said, on the other end of the spectrum is you might be attracted to a person that you think could be a potential partner that drives you freaking crazy, but they might just be challenging you to be better.
Frankly, if you're in a relationship that doesn't scare you to be better, you may be choosing wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, because you want to grow, right? You want someone
Personally.
encouraging to push you. I love that. Woo, Barry, you are good. I don't know. Is anyone asking more questions, Len? Because I have more. Okay, just curious. John Horton. Oh, hey, John. He's my TikToker. I met him on TikTok, John Horton.
So this question is similar to the one I answered earlier about the other 30 or 5-year marriage. Is taking that's the same question. In a sense, it's a different question, but the same theme, which is putting energy into dating each other again.
Yes.
You know, if you really are enjoying the love of the relationship, it may be time to raise the bar of your romantic connection.
Yeah.
So by doing things that really add to the value of your partnership, even though there's still maybe some kids at home, why not? I mean, you got together in the first place that way. If you feel like, especially for some people, I know in front of the kids, you can't do that. You got to be like, you can barely kiss. I mean, my parents were like that. They wouldn't do anything beyond like a little peck on the cheek in front of the kids. That was my parents. So, and of course, that's also English reserve background too. But the thing is, why not bring on the romance again? Put energy into the couple that you were and you are still, even with the kids. Nothing wrong with that.
And like you said, it takes effort. And if the relationship means that much to you and you're committed to it, you have to invest it in there. There's a Facebook user. I bet you. Did this guy talk this funny the whole time? That's Joe Ingram.
Oh,
welcome, Joe. He's back.
He's back.
Joe is in the house.
Yeah, but I dropped truth in the middle of my funniness too. So.
But anyway, so I do have more questions. And then I know I was trying to keep this at 30 minutes, but you are brilliant. And I'm loving this so much. What was it? Oh, I know. So there have been women who have talked about once they're married, they feel like the husband doesn't give them the attention that they once had. And it gets a little stale very quickly. I mean, these are people who have been married maybe 2 or 3 years, and they're already starting to feel like they need the affection and the love and the attention.
Thank you, Joe. So well, first of all, one of the challenges being a masculine man is that we are goal-oriented beings. We like to accomplish goals. We set targets and we go for them and we get there. The thing is, though, is when we get to the target, it's tempting for us to put our feet up unless we have another goal beyond it. The thing about the masculine energy is it's next step, next step, next step. That's the way we're wired. More linear, more focused, more directional. It's one of the gifts of the masculine, also one of the curses. In relationship, when we get the goal, we get married to the goal, we've accomplished the goal. And for some men, they're done because they've hit the goal. So unless they have another goal beyond it, and this is one way of doing for men to function, like maybe it's to have a family, maybe it's to buy the house, maybe it's to whatever their next step is, to keep the motivation going, they tend to put their feet up. And for some women, that sucks because that's not what they wanted. So for masculine men, it's got to keep the inner drive going. And it could be as simple as, my goal this week is to date my wife 3 times, or to compliment her 5 times, or to whatever that is. So it's up to the man in a way, especially if he's been getting feedback that maybe she's not getting what she wants, like he's flagging, is what can he do internally to turn up the juice to become more of a continual deliverer of goals to his partner. That's one piece. The second piece is oftentimes men do switch off. Like they've hit the goal, they're complete. So it's also because they get familiar with their partner. And this is dangerous for men. Is that when they're with a woman who may be the most amazing woman on the planet when they met her, but 3 years into the marriage, they've gotten to the point where like they've seen it too much. Something that can be done, especially if they can, again, if they can talk honestly, is like I said with the older couple, is recharge the batteries. Do things to switch things up, to shift the energy. Maybe they do new things to get sexy with each other, like the way they dress, the way they flirt, the way they interact, because it renews the spark. And for some people, that takes 20 years to happen when they need it. Sometimes it's 2 years when it has to happen. But frankly, if you're not, and I would say this to everybody, if you're in a relationship, you're not keeping the spice going every single day, you're not serving the relationship.
Right. Well, you know, people will say, "My gosh, I'm busy. I'm exhausted. I mean, you know, as a general rule, there are times where, you know, you might be tired, but you're saying as, you know, weeks and, you know, make it a habit to spice it up, keep it going. But, you know, I have a question too, like with the men being more in their masculine and like, I conquered, I won the woman. I'm on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Me, man, I got woman. Now I'm going to go to
Yeah,
sleep.
Tarzan, right.
You know, right. So I guess, do you tell, you know, feminine energies, do you tell women in general to say, you know, notice if that's happening? And if you notice that it's happening and he's getting stagnant and kind of like, we're so familiar, what can a woman do to, you know, spark the new interest or the fire again?
Well, the thing is, and I haven't talked much about the feminine side of the conversation, mostly the masculine. That's where I live, and also what I've been aware of. The feminine is the most magnificent thing on the planet, to be really transparent. I love, one of the reasons I do this work is because I'm an absolute short side story. The reason I do this work is back in 2007, I had a transformation experience which I had a witness to masculine energy in myself and then the feminine energy around me, which is 50 different women at the same time, where I became clear how powerful the feminine was and how clear I was dedicated to that for the rest of my life.
Wow.
That's why I work with women primarily. So my work is about helping women own their own respect for themselves and also helping men respect women as well. It's kind of the underlying thing of my work. So the feminine energy, frankly, well, you know, it's called Mother Nature for a reason. As in, nature is feminine. All of life moving is feminine. So feminine ain't no small thing.
It ain't.
So women have been known to have a thing called intuition. That's a feminine gift. Men have it too, but it's not as developed. So women generally are more tuned in and more sensitive to what men are feeling than the other way around. So oftentimes a woman will be aware a man's off track or not as focused than before he even knows it himself, which can be either done as a gift or as a curse. Because she can weaponize it. Women sometimes do that. You know, you don't do this and you didn't do that, rather than saying, honey, I've noticed you've been feeling like you're very pulled away. Is it work? What's going on? You know, what can we do to reconnect? Again, communication. Definitely when both partners are working, to get back to the point you said earlier about working, one of the things I remember one of my teachers talking about, which I love, is if both partners are working, especially if the woman is working longer hours than the man, because she's probably going to be in a masculine more than she wants to be. One of the gifts he can do for her, if he gets home before her, for example, is knowing when she gets home, especially if you're not eating dinner right away. If when she gets home, when she comes in, take her briefcase, her handbag, her phone, her keys from her, lead her to the bathroom where there's a hot bubble bath with candles going, and tell her, say, I'll see you in half an hour. And just let her just bask in the waters, because for some women, they need the support to remember that they're being feminine. Thank you, Joe. So for women, oftentimes it's about remembering the femininity. And if he can help her with that by being the kind, safe protector so that she can take care of herself, that can do wonders for the sex life and the connection. So we have a responsibility as men to really aid our woman in that way.
And the woman needs to be open to receive that gift of
Absolutely
sweetness too, because I know there are times where we're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I got to go do this first and this. But just get into a place where you're open to receive that and appreciate them.
Here's a clue. Here's a clue. I'm single. I'm at the world, no dating, and I'm being a guy, but I also open doors for women. It's like it's innate for me. It's the way I just do things. You know, a woman comes up, I'll open the door for her when I'm going somewhere. the number of women who are resentful of that surprises me. Well, it doesn't surprise me, just it's frustrating because my gift is to serve and to honor and respect. It's like, I'm not saying, because the thing is, some women take it as being an implication of weakness. This is one of the things. When women don't let a man open the door for them, if they're someone who's self-aware enough, they're going to go, why am I resisting this? Why am I not allowing that to be given to me? It may be because she's not feeling safe enough or not trusting herself to be taken care of. Again, a lot of women in the business world have had to work hard for it, and they've really clawed their way to the top, so to speak. So they're not willing to give that up. So they've got to find a man they can trust that won't violate that.
Yeah. And also, I think it's important for us as women to understand how to find balance. You know, you can be in the business world and have to put the masculine mask on and get it done. But there are times where, I mean, I don't care if it's a man or woman that opens the door for me. Like, especially if I have my hands full, and I don't care, a kid, a man, a woman, it's like, thank you. Thank you. And I also open doors for men and women if I get there first.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I don't feel, I appreciate the gesture just as a human being. I don't really think of it as sexist or trying to make me feel like I'm smaller and I can't do it or anything like that. But I mean, I understand what you're saying too. There are a lot of women that feel like they've just struggled to get to the top, and then they're there, and then like, I am woman, hear me roar. And I say, go do it. I'm a cheerleader for women, 100%. I love to see women succeed just as much as I do a man. But for me personally, and this is just me, having a door open is great. I'm having my chair pulled out for me. I'll take that too.
There you go.
But I wanted to ask, there's more questions that people ask, but we are running out. But I want to ask you before we go, Barry, I've enjoyed this so much. It's flown by.
So, thank you.
So many more things that I could ask you. But I want to find out from you, what have you yourself, and I kind of know the answer, but I want you to say it. And of all of the things that you could share with us tonight, since the show is called Find It, what is so huge to you that you have found in your life with love or anything really? What have you found that's been very profound for you?
I must say it's profound. It's rather simple in a sense, and we have talked about this offline before as well, is that we have, and I said this earlier in the conversation, we've externalized our need for love to somebody else to fill us up. Which when we're in a place that's really, especially if we've got a hard day, it's nice to find somebody who will just love us back up and feel whole again. But it starts with us learning to love ourselves first. I know I spent many, many, many years looking for love out there, like looking for love in all the wrong places. But learning to love ourselves first. Yep. So for a man, as much as for a woman, having a healthy relationship with ourselves, where we care about ourselves and we respect ourselves enough to say no to things and say yes to the right things, is fundamental for any relationship. So if two partners love themselves first, honor themselves, respect themselves, the relationship's going to thrive on levels they've never had before. So yeah, self-love is, and that's, I mean, the problem is self-love has been overused as a term. Yeah. But that relationship with ourself, which includes self-approval, self-trust, self-honoring, self-confidence, self-respect, the list goes on of things we can do for ourselves. We build those muscles for ourselves, we become a much better partner in the future.
A better partner, and we pick a better partner for ourselves because we know what we desire and what we deserve.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Love it. Barry, you're amazing. Before we go, I got to show. Remember, this is the first day I got my new book.
Yep.
Remember that?
I remember that picture. Yep.
And I sent that to you. I'm like, look what came in. I love it. Well, you've been amazing. And I know that we've had steady people watching. I've had people say that they have really enjoyed this. And why not? Because even in life, regardless if it's a romantic relationship or not, we all need to grow and be better by ourselves so we can be better friends, better parents, better partners. So
absolutely.
With that, I am going to ask my producer, Lynn, to show your outro, and stick around, Barry, so we can talk after in the green room with champagne and mints.
The green room. Okay.
Okay.